We're talking Miami Hurricanes today on Sharpen the Point. 2024, a 10-3 record. It was a solid season, but a bad loss to Syracuse to finish the regular season really cost them a shot at the ACC title and a berth in the playoffs. Head coach Mario Cristobal returns for his fourth season. Hopefully, he doesn't make any gaffes in those late season clock management situations this year. Defensive coordinator, they make a switch with Corey Heatherman coming in from Minnesota, where he was the defensive coordinator for PJ Fleck. I'm familiar with him from his time as the defensive coordinator at James Madison from 2019 to 2021. And he brings an aggressive style where his goal is to put the offense behind the sticks by creating tackles for loss and sacks and turnover opportunities. That's a stark change from what they played a year ago. Quarterback wise, Cam Ward, he had a Heisman worthy season for the Canes with over 4,300 yards passing and 39 touchdowns en route to being the top pick in the NFL draft. They're going to miss his production, but I'd argue they will miss his leadership more than even the production itself. They now turn to Carson Beck from Georgia. Prior to last season, he was projected by many to be the top pick in the draft, where Ward ended up being. He never looked quite right in his second year starting for the Dogs, as he was putting up numbers, but the efficiency stats, sacks, and number of turnovers were all a step back from the year prior. You could attribute that poor play to losing his top-tier talents on the outside with Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, who he had a great connection with. But then it all kind of came crashing down in that SEC title game when his arm was hit on a Hail Mary attempt before the half, causing a UCL tear. There's a limited sample size, but guys have showed no ill effects coming back from that type of injury. Beck missed the entire spring recovering from surgery, and he should be ready to go for the fall. I would not expect him to be Cam Ward, as he's not as prolific of a passer, nor as good of an athlete buying time in the pocket, and definitely not the same quality of leader. Last season's backup, Emory Williams, he returns to that role as number 2 on the depth chart. He got the starters reps in the spring and performed the best of the bunch of the quarterbacks that were available. Running back wise, Damian Martinez was an underrated and underappreciated part of the offense's success last season. I wish he'd gotten closer to 200 carries on the year, but he still managed to be effective, surpassing the 1,000-yard mark and notching double-digit touchdowns. He does head off to the NFL, leaving a slight void here. Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle, they will look to each move up a peg to the top 2 options in the room. They were equally as effective as Martinez last year, combining for similar numbers to those that Martinez had across the board in terms of carries, yards, and touchdowns. I'd expect them to split the work evenly for at least the early part of the season until somebody emerged. Fletcher has really worked hard in the offseason to improve his strength and conditioning while focusing on his pass-catching consistency, something that was lacking a year ago. Lyle is a more explosive player of the two, with an exceptional combination of size, speed, and contact balance. It'll be interesting to see who emerges there. The top 2 of those guys are quality players and will no doubt be productive, but the third guy in the room may be the most interesting and intriguing to me in Shamar Brown. He comes over from North Dakota State. He had a massive freshman season for the Bison with nearly 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns, showing he was already capable of handling a workhorse number of touches with nearly 250 carries on the season. Brown could certainly step right in and carve out a role with the possibility to take on a heavier workload as the season progresses, specifically if the top 2 end up faltering or do not step up and take the role. Pass catching wise, it's an understatement to say the wide receiver room is in a state of flux this year. They lose the top 4 wideouts in Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, Isaiah Horton, who heads to Alabama, and Sam Brown. Each played well with Ward, but Restrepo is going to be missed the most. He was extremely reliable go-to option that would make a play whenever they needed it most. They turned to the portal to supplement those losses with C.J. Daniels coming from LSU, Keelan Marion out of BYU, and Tony Johnson out of Cincinnati. All 3 of them are coming off of unimpressive seasons, even though they were career-high years for Marion and Johnson. Marion has plenty of speed to burn on the outside, and he's going to be a vertical threat, more of a wind sprinter, I like to call them, on the outside. Johnson's going to be in the competition for reps in the slot as a veteran option there. Daniels is interesting. He was one of the bigger busts from the portal last year, gaining less than 500 yards with no touchdowns. He was constantly on the field for the Tigers, but just never seemed capable of making any plays compared to the 23 season with Liberty, where he had over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Daniels missed most of the spring recovering from an off-season foot surgery, but did return late to show off his possession receiver ability. He's a vocal leader in the room. I just doubt his separation from talented DBs. Returners JoJo Trader and Ray Ray Joseph, love the double names there, have limited experience but have been in the system. Trader stood out in the spring, routinely making spectacular plays with his ability to create separation and make acrobatic catches. He did miss the last few practice sessions with a wrist injury, but he should be good to go in the fall. Joseph is in that slot competition with Johnson, but I would expect him to be a rotational piece at best. Two four-star freshman receivers, they're also going to be in the mix with Joshua Moore and Malachi Toney. Moore is a big option on the outside at 6'4", who should see the field right away. Toney's more in that slot competition and looks to have surpassed Joseph with a strong spring showcasing his talent. Right now, there's not a true go-to target for Beck, but I would expect Trader to be the best of the bunch as he is the most dynamic player with experience. Like Martinez, tight end Elijah Arroyo, he did not get enough credit for how good he was last year, given how talented the receiver core was. He was an explosive weapon at tight end with nearly 600 yards and 7 touchdowns while averaging nearly 17 yards per catch, which is an eye-popping number. Arroyo did all of that receiving work while being an above-average blocker, making him tough to replace. Elijah Lofton is now going to step into a more significant role in his second season. He was a dynamic playmaker in the spring as a versatile weapon who can line up all over the field, including some fullback positions, and even get carries as a power back with a big body. Lofton will be an important mismatch weapon for them as they're going to try to scheme him touches. Alex Bauman, he comes from Tulane. He's going to handle more of the blocking duties. He's a capable receiver, but not nearly the athlete that Lofton is. Along the offensive line, 3 of the 5 starters returned from a year ago, including both tackles from a unit that was very good at protecting the quarterback. That provides a lot of confidence that this unit can once again be one of the better ones in the conference with how they have been able to develop that young talent that they have brought in. Right tackle Francis Mauigoa, he is the top guy on the unit and an all-around force. He took steps forward this offseason with his technique and conditioning to further improve. Left tackle Markel Bell, he made similar strides in his return, but he's going to be pushed by a former 5-star Samson Akunlola, who looks ready to step into a more prominent role in the near future. Right guard's going to be covered by Inez Cooper, who's returning to the lineup. He generated buzz in the spring by taking on more of a leadership role in this room. And then transfer James Brockermeyer. He comes from TCU. He's going to step into that center spot, while left guard is still a bit of a battle, with Ryan Rodriguez and Matthew McCoy being the main pieces in that running. Rodriguez is more of a high floor guy. He brings physicality and toughness to the unit, with McCoy having a higher ceiling to his game than Rodriguez, but he may not quite be ready yet. On the defensive line, last year the line stuffed opposing run games and lived in the opponent's backfields. They lose Tyler Barron, Simeon Barrow, and others who contributed, but there is so much talented depth ready to step up that they should still be plenty disruptive. Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, they're going to be the top guys off the edge after they combined for 8 sacks last year. Bain is now healthy and improving his conditioning levels during the spring. He's in line to at worst return, if not surpass, his impact from 2023. Mesidor is going to be a nice complement to Bain as an all-around good defender capable of playing across that line. Talented youngsters Armando Blunt and Marquise Lightfoot, they took big steps forward in the spring. They're going to factor into that rotation as well. Ahmed Moten, he's going to operate at one defensive tackle spot with his physicality and ability to generate penetration. The other defensive tackle spot looks more like a rotation with David Blay from Louisiana Tech and Justin Scott, the top options there. Blay had a quality year last year, generating 4 sacks and constant pressure. And then Scott is a former 5-star who's really pushing for a starting job this year after playing a limited role in his freshman year. Linebacker-wise, Francisco Mauigoa, he was the clear top defender and leader of the second level a year ago, leading the team in tackles with 96 and contributing in both the run and pass defense. The rest of the rotation, he's gone to the NFL now. The rest of the rotation does return, however. with Wesley Bissanth and Raul Aguirre being the most notable pieces. Bissanth, he started next to Maui Noah last year and played well, but there's plenty of room for improvement for him. He's going to be pushed by Kamal Bonner. He comes over from NC State for snaps, as Bonner adds speed and length to this room. Aguirre, he put up good numbers on limited reps in his sophomore year, and he's primed to take over for Maui Noah. Heatherman is really going to be focused on improving that linebacker unit, as it is the spot he has spent most of the time during his career working with. I think he improves them a ton. Defensive back wise, the secondary did not perform well last season, is likely the reason why they made the change at defensive coordinator. It was definitely the reason they lost to Syracuse. They lose a good bit from the room to both graduation and the portal, but they utilize the portal to restock themselves. Additions of the much publicized Xavier Lucas from Wisconsin, lawsuit outstanding there. Chuck Brantley from Michigan State. Zechariah Poyser from Jacksonville State. Jacoby Thomas from Tennessee. Ethan O'Connor from Washington State. And Keontae Scott from Houston are going to prove vital to turning this unit around. Scott and Brantley are going to battle it out for that nickel spot. Brantley's a feisty guy who can cover in the short area and brings plenty of experience. He's going to be pretty good there. At safety, Poyser, he's earned the staff's trust as a dependable player in the box against the run, as well as playmaking potential when in coverage. Pairing him with Thomas, who's played nearly 1,500 snaps in his college career, and also they both bring plenty of physicality, will be a nice duo that can be versatile while laying the wood to anyone crossing the middle. Lucas has star potential at cornerback given his length and ability to perform well in all aspects. It's why Wisconsin was so upset to lose him. And O'Connor showed plenty of promise in the spring. He's going to be a big part of the cornerback rotation as well. He had 4 interceptions for the Cougs last year. And then returning cornerback O.J. Federic, he showed he could be an impact player as a true freshman last season, and he's going to play a prominent role on that outside. Looking at the schedule and outlook for the season, the line is really the best part of this offense. While I think the backs are solid, which should really lead to a much more run-focused offense, given the weapons to throw to are heavily downgraded from a year ago, and I simply do not trust Carson Beck. When you combine the arm issue he's coming off of with heavy scrutiny of his character during the offseason and leadership abilities, it is questionable as to how far he can lead this team. The defense should be much improved with upgrades on the back end and a quality front four that can get after the passer, combining the talent with a clear upgrade in scheme under Heatherman, and they're going to win games in a much different way to me this year than last. They start the season off with a tough one. They get Notre Dame right out the gate. I think the Catholics win here. Sorry to the convicts. It's a loss. Bethune-Cookman win. South Florida. I would do not sleep on Byron Brown. You're going to need to make sure you're up for this game. He is an electric player, but it should be a win. You should out-talent that team. Florida, I think that's a coin flip game. I would lean loss. I think Lagway's good enough. I'm not the biggest Lagway fan, but I think they're on the rise here. At Florida State, it's a win, but it can be a long day if you cannot stop that rush offense of Gus Malzahn. Louisville, loss. Stanford win. Stanford's terrible. At SMU is a coin flip for me. They lack weapons on the outside, similarly to Miami, but they do have a dynamic quarterback and one that I trust more right now in Kevin Jennings. Syracuse, they get revenge here for keeping them out of that ACC title game last year. I think that's a win. NC State, I will lean win. I think NC State's a year away from really being a power. At Virginia Tech, win. I'll lean win. It is on the road late in the season, but I just think Virginia Tech's going to be in turmoil by then. And at Pitt to close it out, I think that's a tough late season game. I would lean win again, but having to play at Pitt late in the year for some South Florida kids is going to be awkward with that cold weather. The non-con is difficult with plenty of landmines there. They do get to miss Clemson, which is a benefit. The talent is there on defense, but you're not going to be able to outscore teams this year, and will need to have things bounce right with turnovers for it to go well. 7 wins should be the floor, with 9 being a more likely total to reach. I expect them to regroup and go hunting for weapons in the offseason and probably a new quarterback in the portal after the season to try to rebuild for another run.